Welcome everybody to episode number 57 of the Building the Village podcast. As always, I'm your host, Dr. Brandon W. Jones, your chief village building strategist. Something different today. I want to ask you all to go back to episode 31 of the podcast. Y'all remember that one where I was in front of my bookshelf and I had those really cool lights on there? Well, those lights are gone now. But anyways, I want you to go back to that episode and I want you to recall the title. Does anybody remember the title? That title was called It's a Process. And in that episode, I described a couple of things that are going to be required for us, for you, for me, for coaches, for individuals, for organizations and teams to build their villages. And so the 3 steps that I outlined was, number 1, you got to get outside of your comfort zone. And number 2, you got to look for your thing. And what I mean is those things that you're interested in. What's your thing? What are you known for being excited about and participating in all the time? And then I asked you all to be patient because I've noticed that people aren't that patient. Now, I'm going back to this just a little bit on topic because I've noticed a couple of things. I've noticed that, yes, we've talked about building the village. Yes, we've talked about trusting the process or whatever your process will be. But we got to go back to this because I'm noticing a lot of things. Number 1, I'm noticing that people are tired. I'm noticing that people are growing more and more impatient in their friend groups and they're not wanting to have conversations and take the time to build. Everybody wants things microwaved. And also people are growing more and more discouraged by the day. Those loneliness numbers that I talked about a couple of weeks back and a couple of episodes ago, people are still lonely. And it's reaching the point that it's at epidemic levels. And so we got to do something different. And that's what I want to do in today's episode. The reality is this: we love results, y'all. Everybody wants the results. Everybody wants the finished product. Everybody wants the final version or the latest and greatest and the best and the brightest. But we struggle so much with processes. And so today's episode is all about trusting the process, even when it's a little bit slow. Now, I want to spend some time early on, though, in this conversation talking about some of the lies that we believe, not just about processes, but about progress. I'm starting to notice that when it comes to progress, people not only expect quick results, people do a lot of comparing. Is that you? Are you that person that likes to compare where you are in perspective to your friend or that person that you admire, right? Do you do that? It's very important that you stop comparing because sometimes we're comparing someone that's in the middle stage of their development or their growth or their journey to our beginning stages or our middle stages compared to their finished stages. Another thing I think that's occurred is social media. Now, I love social media just like anybody else. I'm on there. And if you're not following me, please follow me at B Jones Speaks. Definitely would appreciate that on Threads and on Instagram and YouTube. But social media has sped up our expectations. We see the finished product. We see the photo finish and we forget that on platforms like Instagram, a lot of the things that we're seeing have a filter on them. They've got a nice song added to them. We've seen the glamorized version of what somebody wants us to see, and yet we didn't see all the development. We didn't see the outtakes. That reminds me of when I used to take pictures with my kids when they were younger and they would not be looking at the camera. They'd be looking at the ground. My son would do something ridiculous prior to us taking the photo. And as a result, we finally get that one good photo, but it took us 20 bad ones to get there. That's kind of how social media works. Now, when it comes to building the village, you can't develop deep community and deep connections that fast. It's going to take a couple of things that happen. It's going to take building trust, building connection and belonging. That stuff is going to take time. Now, as I said earlier, a lot of people want things microwaved, but here's the thing. You can't microwave things that are meant to be slow cooked. I'm going to say that again for the cooks in the room. Listen, you cannot microwave what's supposed to be slow cooked. You got to take your time. You've got to be patient. You've got to set things out. You got to start early and give yourself time. And I think that's part of the reason why a lot of people quit the process too, because people don't like things that take time anymore. People don't get the immediate results that they're looking for. They experience fatigue or burnout. They start to feel discouraged, and a lot of folks start to feel unnoticed and unsupported. And all of those are things that make people want to quit the process. I'm also thinking about Coach Nick Saban. Coach Saban coached the Alabama Crimson Tide. He also coached at LSU, coached the Miami Dolphins for a little bit, came up in the Bill Belichick coaching tree. And one of the things he's noted for saying amongst all of his players that made it to the NFL, especially over the last 15 or 20 years, all of them you would interview them, and what you would constantly hear them repeat is this phrase: trust the process. You heard it. Trust the process. You could ask Julio Jones. You could ask Derrick Henry. You could ask AJ McCarron. You could ask Devontae Smith. You could ask any of those players who have had great NFL careers that played at the University of Alabama. And if you asked them to describe their time at the University of Alabama, all of them would say, you've got to trust the process. But if you're someone that wants to start immediately, you're not going to enjoy your time at the University of Alabama under Nick Saban. If you're someone that wants to be high profile and get a lot of attention and notoriety, the University of Alabama, at least under Coach Saban, wasn't going to be the institution or the team for you, because there were guys that would go to Alabama and they'd sit on the bench for 3 or 4 years just to have one good season, but they had a next man up mentality. They had a next man up philosophy, so that if the person in front of them was hurt, they were ready because they trusted the process. And I think what happens with a lot of us is we want to rush our processes. We want village now. We want community now. We want to engage today. We don't want to take time. We don't want small talk, as a lot of my friends who are single and dating are saying. We don't want to learn people's favorite colors. We want to get right to business. And that's not what happens. So there's a couple of things that I want to share that I think will help us with the process, even when it moves slow. And so the first point that I'm going to give you all today is very important, and it's a very familiar one, but it's this: the process requires time. It requires time. Growth is gradual. It builds up. We haven't created airplanes yet that can just take off from right there at the gate. Now, I'll be thankful when that does happen, but until then, you got to make a slow and gradual ascent into the cruising altitude. Growth is gradual. And guess what that means? Building your village, growing your community, all of those things are going to take the time that you're going to need to build them, but also trust. Trust is built over those repeated moments. And what I mean by repeated moments, it's that regularly scheduled coffee with that colleague that you're trying to build trust with, or that new staff member that you hired. It's that one-on-one meeting with with that team member that's you're learning. It's you and your supervisor. All of those things are built over those moments that have repetition. My pastor said this to me the other day. He said that intimacy is the reward of shared struggle. And so as a result, we grow closer together when disagreements happen. But if I quit at every bump, at every moment of turbulence, if I give up at every moment of tension and conflict, we don't build trust, our relationships don't deepen, and we miss out. All of those things require consistency. And so you got to give yourself time. You got to be patient because it's what's required. Plants, they grow slowly over time, but when they start growing, man, it's a rich experience. It's beautiful. And we celebrate and we benefit from those plants growing in those dark moments, growing in the dark when no one else is looking or paying attention, or even when we don't see progress. The growth happens beneath the soil. And sometimes our relationships are like that. Here's the other thing I would encourage you to think about when you think about some examples of taking time, building friendships. Your best friend isn't your best friend just because of one interaction. It's over time. Growing as a leader and developing as a leader. You're that leader that you are, and you're going to be that great leader later on because of the effort and energy and time that was put into your development. Your spiritual growth takes time. Listen, I got a personal one in there, and this is a reminder to myself, this podcast. Y'all remember where I was at in episode 31? I ain't had the best lighting, didn't know how to manipulate and do sound or anything like that, but I was putting the product out there. Podcasting or your platform that you're building, it takes time. Anything that's real is probably going to take you a lot longer than you initially thought. So trust the process and take your time. Okay? Here's the second thing I want you to do. I want you to remember that the process that I'm asking you to trust in your village building process, in your organizational development, building that team, whatever you're applying this method to, it's going to require energy. And I know all the low iron people in the room said, oh no, right? Listen, it's going to take some energy. And the reason it takes energy is because there's going to be some moments you don't feel like showing up. There's going to be moments you don't feel like writing the book or putting words on paper or showing up to that staff meeting or going to that event. But we talked about the power of showing up and pulling up in the last episodes, right? And we saw what can happen and the damage that can get done when we don't show up. And so building the village, in this process of building the village, it's going to take some energy. And sometimes that means I have to show up when I don't feel like it. That's also going to require that I invest in, guess what? People. It amazes me that in 2026, there are so many people who want the village, but don't want to talk to the people or to make the people investment. They'll invest the money as long as they don't have to invest time into people. And I'm somewhat baffled by that because these people want relationships. They want thriving communities, but they want it in the most secluded, introverted, tucked away method possible. And I have to remind folks that no, you got to put some energy in. You got to show your face. You've got to be present. And in being present, you got to stay committed even when the results are invisible. Just like the plant that's growing beneath the surface, beneath that soil, you got to stay committed and locked in because I can't stop watering it just because I don't see the growth. I still got to keep watering it. And so the question for you all at this stage of the game is this: what are you willing to pay? What are you willing to sacrifice? What are you willing to commit to building the village? Because here's the thing, building a village is emotionally expensive. And you know what that means? That means it's risky. Because you can put yourself out there and guess what? People might reject you. You might be misunderstood. Somebody's going to get something wrong. But you know what? Village building requires patience. We just talked about that. Guess what else is going to require? Forgiveness. And the reason it's going to require forgiveness is because somebody's going to mispronounce your name. Somebody's going to accidentally step on your shoe. Somebody is going to forget that they were supposed to meet with you for coffee and they're going to text you later apologizing and you're going to be angry and upset. But assume good intent. Let me save y'all some therapy money. Assume good intent, please. It's going to require some consistency. That means that I've got to be patient, willing to forgive, and still being consistent. All of those things are emotionally draining, I know. At the same time, if I want a community, if I want to build a community where people can thrive and feel like they belong and are connected and engaged, it's going to require energy from me, And it's also going to require some energy from you or the other people that are part of your village. This process is going to cost you something. What are you willing to pay for it? Here's the next thing. What trusting the process actually is going to look like is this. When you actually trust the process, here's what it'll look like in practice. And I gave that example from the University of Alabama under Nick Saban, and players kept showing up. They kept coming to practice. They kept going to class that we know of. They kept participating. Even if they didn't play the previous game, they kept showing up. That's what trusting the process looks like. Even though it's slow, you keep showing up. You stay consistent. You keep doing what you need to do. And by staying consistent, what I mean is you keep being your authentic self. You're not dimming your light. You're not trying to over escalate and be more than who you really are. You're consistently being who you are in the space. You're still showing up. You're still trying. You're still being you when you trust the process. And you make adjustments. I made a post on LinkedIn earlier today talking about the need to pivot every once in a while. Adjustments are just simple adjustments. I'm not changing who I am. I'm not minimizing who I am. I'm not hiding. I'm just making a small little adjustment, and I'm making the adjustment without quitting. See, sometimes we make adjustments, we call them adjustments, but what we're actually doing is quitting. I no longer show up there. If that's what's required and that's what's needed for your safety, I'm not judging that or criticizing that. But what I am saying is, if I've been showing up in the mornings and no one's there, can I come in the evenings? Can I, if they're not answering the phone or the text messages in the mornings, have you tried texting in the afternoon? Instead of sending an email, have you asked, hey, what's your preferred method of communication? It's those small adjustments that make the big difference. And here's another thing. Let's celebrate the small wins. The fact that they spelled your name right in the email or the group text. Celebrate that. If they actually showed up for coffee on time for the first time out of 10, celebrate it. Don't go, man, finally, because nobody wants to feel like that, right? But also value people's time. And then also, as you're trusting the process, trust what's being built beneath the surface. Because even though I can't see it, something good is developing. Something strong is being formed. And I promise you, if you can do the things we talked about in today's episode and you trust that process, even though it's slow, even though it's painful at times, not physically painful, but emotionally painful, because it's like, man, I'm putting myself out here and I'm really trying. Remember, nothing that's worth it or worthwhile is it's not gonna happen super fast. Sometimes it's gonna take time, and it's okay if it takes time to develop and build. But if you're willing to do that, I promise you, meaningful connections are going to be formed. You're going to create a village that has a meaningful impact. Your organization is going to thrive. Your team is going to perform better because the person those people next to you and the people that are surrounding each other, they trust each other to do their jobs, and they trust that the person next to them is going to do theirs. And that's a team you want to be a part of, and that's a team that you can build. Remember, if you like today's episode and if you like the content, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe wherever you're listening or watching this episode. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other. Peace. Hey, everybody, if you like today's episode, make sure that you like, comment, and subscribe. And then also go to my link tree at B Jones Speaks. You can also follow me on Instagram at B Jones Speaks. And if you're not already doing so, make sure that you're subscribing on YouTube at, you guessed it, B Jones Speaks. See you next time.